From Lebanon, we flew 2 hours to Athens, Greece, the capital and largest city of this ancient nation. Athens is a huge, sprawling metropolis of nearly 4 million people that stretches from the hills to the sea. We took a bus from the airport to the city center, then a taxi to our apartment in the Neos Cosmos neighborhood. The area was residential with lots of motorcycle shops, a grocery, a butcher, and a weekly market were all within a couple blocks of us. The market was the largest that we'd seen so far in all of our travels. Our market was just one of over 40 laikes agoras, or people's markets, in downtown Athens, with hundreds more throughout the country. Considered an important cultural tradition, by law, only small family farmers can sell in these markets. The market went on for at least 6 blocks, crossing the nearby tram line, and we could get a week's worth of produce for around $20 US. A major thoroughfare was also near our apartment, and we had easy access to bus, tram, and metro stops. Athens has over 70 neighborhoods, and the extensive transit system is handy to reach them, though we didn't explore nearly all of them. Syntagma, Constitution in Greek, is the heart of modern Athens, and a hub to reach many of the most significant neighborhoods. Across the street from Syntagma, by the Greek Parliament building, the Tomb of the Unknowns is guarded around the clock by members of the Greek Presidential Guard. Every hour of every day, during the daytime, crowds gather to watch the changing of the guards. The ceremony itself is full of precision, discipline, and reverence. The largest crowds gather on Sundays at 11 to witness the grand weekly formal ceremony. All of the guards' uniforms are derived from the traditional garb of the original resistance fighters who rose up against the Ottomans in the 1800s. But the formal uniforms are particularly full of symbolism. The heavy clogs, or sarouchia, were worn by the remote mountain villagers who were viewed with disdain by the Ottomans. The soles are embedded with at least 60 nails to simulate battle sounds with every step. The fustanella kilt is 30 meters of fabric pleated 400 times, one pleat for every year of Ottoman occupation. The full ceremony lasts over an hour, but the spectacle is worth it. Behind the Parliament building, the National Garden is a shaded refuge in the center of the city. Completed in 1840, the garden covers 15.5 hectares, or 38 acres, with walking trails, a variety of flora and fauna, and spaces to just hang out and rest. Just beside the garden, the Pan-Athenaic Stadium is one of the largest ancient hippodromes ever built, and is the only stadium in the world built entirely of marble. Originally constructed in 330 BCE, it was refurbished for the very first modern Olympic Games in 1896. Running west from Syntagma, Hermos Street is the most famous pedestrian shopping street in Athens. More unusually, an Orthodox church sits in the middle of the street. Continuing down Hermos, you reach Monasteryaki Square. A major tourist center, Monasteryaki is home to Athens' very first train and metro stations. There are tons of shops, cafes, and restaurants in the streets leading away from Monasteryaki. Closer to our apartment, Philippopos Hill rises up out of a tree-lined residential neighborhood. It's a good hike up to the top, over 450 feet above where we were staying. The hilltop views of the city are pretty spectacular, and it's the best place we found to see a sunset in Athens. The famous Acropolis of Athens can be seen from almost everywhere in the city, including many rooftop bars and from our apartment with a zoom lens. Visiting the Acropolis itself is good for taking selfies, but the Parthenon is seemingly always under renovation, and the hilltop can be super crowded. For us, Philippopos Hill was the best place to see the Acropolis, especially as the sun set and the lights came on. Right off Monasteryaki Square, in the shadow of the Acropolis, the ancient Athenian Agora was much more interesting and meaningful to us than the Acropolis. The Agora was the heart of ancient Athens, where political, commercial, official, and social activity all took place. It's where Socrates posed his philosophical man-on-the-street questions to Athenians, and where Sophocles premiered his timeless plays like Oedipus Rex. We followed the Rick Steves audio guide through the Agora, and it really came alive for us. At the eastern end of the Agora, the Stoa of Adelos is the first structure that you see when entering. Originally built in the 3rd century BCE by Adelos, king of Pergamon in modern Turkey, it was essentially an ancient strip mall, with vendors lined up inside the colonnade. This 1950s reconstruction now houses the Museum of the Agora. At the opposite end, the Temple of Hephaestus overlooks the rest of the Agora. Dedicated to the god of blacksmiths, craftsmen, fire, and volcanoes, this temple is much more accessible and much more intact than the Parthenon of the Acropolis. Athens also has some amazing indoor museums. Opposite the Agora, below the Acropolis Museum is a must-see when visiting Athens. Perhaps most unusually, it is built over an active archaeological dig site, an entire community that dates back 2,500 years to the golden age of Athens. The museum itself is modern and spacious, never feeling crowded, as visitor counts are limited each hour. The sheer number of Acropolis artifacts is incredible, along with scale models of ancient Athens to put it all in physical perspective. The Erechtheion, with its remarkable caryatid statues, can only be seen from a distance on the Acropolis. But 6 of the 7 originals can be seen up close in the museum. One was decapitated by a Turkish cannonball, and the 7th is in the British Museum. North of the Acropolis Museum, the National Archaeological Museum has exhibits covering nearly 9,000 years of human settlement in Greece and Greek Mediterranean colonies from Cyprus to Italy. From the Neolithic era to the earliest Bronze Age settlements in the Cycladic Islands, to Mycenaean and Minoan civilizations, into Golden Age Greece, Hellenistic Greece, and beyond. We again used the highly detailed Rick Steves audio tour, which was very helpful providing specifics for some famous pieces, like the 3,500-year-old gold mask of Agamemnon and the incredibly lifelike 2,200-year-old jockey of Artemision. The Antikythera mechanism wasn't in the Rick Steves tour, but it's a 2,200-year-old computer that predicts astronomical positions and eclipses. The private Katsanas Ancient Technology Museum has a scale reproduction that shows how the mechanism probably looked, with detailed engraved concentric rings and fine interlocking gears. A larger model shows how complex the mechanism was. The outer sphere represents the sun, the inner sphere the moon. The gears and rings run following two astronomical cycles. The 6,940-day Metonic cycle is how often lunar phases recur on the same day of the year, and the 6,585 and a third day Saros cycle predicts lunar and solar eclipses. The sun and moon orbit through the months and zodiac signs, with the light and dark halves of the moon rotating in phase. One day we rode the tram south of downtown along the coast of the Saronic Gulf. Most Athens beaches are run by private companies who charge an entrance fee and have you eat and drink at their bars and restaurants. There are a few public beaches, including the one that we picked, Glyphida. It was basic and rocky, but clean, and the umbrellas were free, and the water was clear and refreshing on a hot day. Another day trip we took was to the ancient and biblical city of Corinth, about an hour west from Athens by car. Our first stop was the rocky, monolithic fortress of Acropolis. First used over 2,700 years ago, the 575-meter high peak provided an unmatched view of the surrounding area, and, with its spring water source, was an ideal location for a fortress. The current 3,000 meters of walls were built by the Byzantines and expanded by the Crusaders, Venetians, and finally the Ottomans. Far below the fortress, the ancient city of Corinth has been occupied for over 8,500 years and was one of the most important cities in classical Greece, with its significant temples and theaters. But it's probably best known from the New Testament of the Bible. The Apostle Paul visited the city on his second journey, and a few stones remain from the church dedicated to him. Corinth lies on an isthmus, the narrowest point of the Peloponnese. For nearly 3,000 years, Greek and Roman rulers dreamed of cutting a canal through this narrow strip of land to speed up boat travel between the Aegean and Ionian seas. Finally, in the late 1800s, two Hungarian engineers succeeded, creating a narrow 4-mile canal that at 300 feet is still the deepest in the world. There are 3 central bridges, one of which is used for bungee jumping. We didn't do it. At either end, the land is much lower, so the bridges are designed to sink beneath the water to let boat traffic pass. If you take a car farther down the coast, beyond the city sprawl, the water turns a deep blue color. Timing our journey near sunset, we traveled to the very tip of the Attic Peninsula, to the ancient ruins of Saunion. The Temple of Poseidon was built during Athens' Golden Age in the 5th century BCE to overlook the Aegean, the domain of the Greek sea god.